Is there a difference in leadership between the startup mentality and a more established firm?
Yes, there is. And the biggest startup experience I've had, and I've had several, was a scale up, which was an online education venture that we built from scratch. We were able to raise a lot of money and become the market leader in a short period of time. And in 4 years, scale up from 5 people to hundreds of employees, $65 million in sales, on our way to an IPO. And then it went on to become a $1 billion company after I left, and has gone international. But we almost ran out of cash a couple of times. We made some huge mistakes on that sort of roller coaster. And so, the startup context is very different from a traditional, corporate or whatnot. I like to think of 4 things. The time pressure is really intense. They're resource constrained. You don't have, policies and procedures and a lot of people and capital typically. There's a lot of uncertainty. You have kind of like, what's going to work? There's no field manual for your business model or your product launch. And they tend to be very chaotic because, you haven't had the time, to kind of put it all together. At the beginning, it takes time. And so that's it's one of the most challenging leadership contexts you can have, along with turnarounds. And so given that, I think leaders need to be really nimble. And so I really like the whole lean startup methodology, which is, it's not just for startups, by the way. It's very much an innovation methodology it's designed for big companies and governments too, but it comes out of startup experience. And it's really about, as a startup, cash is king, right? You run out of cash, you're dead. And it's a very high risk. And the old model was, I've got an idea, I'm going to write a business plan, I'm going to launch it, and then I fail, 90% of the time. And lean startup is about, nobody's that smart to be able to guess with all the variables of the market. And so what you have to do is you have to do these minimum viable product, MVP launches, pilots, prototypes, and gather feedback. And so what lean startup is really about learning. It's about the learn startup. Is how do you go through a feedback loop and quickly learn about what will actually get traction in the marketplace and not what you think. And so that's one of the key things where you have to build an organization that's really good at testing, experimenting, and learning. The other classic leadership mistake in startup land is that people don't pay attention to building the culture. There's so many challenges going on with cash and product launch and whatever PR. There's so many fires that you neglect the culture of the venture. And then you end up often with a mediocre or bad or toxic culture, and it ends up killing you in the long term. And so then that's why, there's a lot of, there's a metaphor of, if you're coding something, you have technical debt. It's all the compromises that you make in your code, just you're going to go fix it later. And the same concept from Steve Blank says you have organizational debt or culture debt. It's all the little compromises or the things that you neglected because you were so focused on putting out fires that later turn out to be a disaster. And you see people are leaving in droves, or there's a revolt against your new compensation policy because you didn't take the time to invest in the people. And you know what? The people are always the most important thing. The work is through the people, as Heifetz said. And so we can never be in a situation where we're focusing so much on strategy or product or business model that we're neglecting the people. The people are the ones who do all of that. It's all through them. So never neglect the people, the relationships, the conversations.